Imagine yourself at a luxurious banquet in ancient Rome, surrounded by extravagant dishes, attentive servants, and an atmosphere where ostentation was as important as the taste of the food. While most Romans subsisted on bread and olive oil, the elite indulged in unimaginable delicacies: flamingo tongues, stuffed wild boars, rare fish, and wines so refined they cost a fortune. But what fueled this relentless pursuit of luxury in gastronomy? Today, we will unveil the most impressive banquets of ancient Rome, explore the secrets of noble dining, and understand how food became a symbol of status and power in the empire. You will discover curiosities that will surprise you and perhaps even shock you with the excesses of that era. But before we dive into this journey through time, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have activated the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our exclusive content about the grandeur of the Roman Empire. Roman banquets began with a true explosion of dishes designed to astonish the guests. And one of the greatest examples of extravagance came straight from the heavens. Want to find out how exotic birds became a symbol of prestige? Exotic birds. One evening at Emperor Tiberius's palace, it is said that Apicius was invited to prepare a special banquet to impress a foreign embassy. The main course? Flamingo tongue. Although shocking by today's standards, this type of delicacy was celebrated by the Romans as a true symbol of wealth and refinement. The difficulty in capturing such exotic birds made it all the more special. Nero, in his theatrical parties, would often order peacocks to be served with their feathers intact, so that the guests could admire the beauty of the bird before tasting it. The extravagant emperor believed that presentation was as important as flavor, turning every banquet into a spectacle. The same vanity led him to demand live music while the dishes were served. Meanwhile, the ever-young and novelty-hungry Elagabalus would send for ostriches from distant provinces, as he loved to experiment with different recipes. Legend has it that he tried combining ostrich meat with sweet and sour sauces, believing that each bite was a flavor trump card. This taste for innovation impressed some, but also shocked the more traditional. Have you ever wondered how such unusual dishes influenced a host's reputation in Rome? Leave your like now to help us continue bringing you impactful stories like this. Speaking of rarities, have you ever imagined what happened when the sea was also explored in search of exclusive delights? Get ready, because next up is something many considered the caviar of the Romans. Sea urchins. The consumption of sea urchins was a privilege almost reserved for those who could afford fast and secure transport to keep these creatures fresh. In Rome, especially at Lucullus's feasts, sea urchins were served raw, dressed only, with olive oil and vinegar to highlight their singular taste and unusual texture. Apicius, always in search of new sensations, developed aromatic sauces based on herbs imported from the East to accompany the sea urchins. He believed that this dish gave the host an aura of sophistication. After all, besides being expensive, it was little known to most Romans living in the interior of the empire. Emperor Tiberius, although more reserved, couldn't deny a certain curiosity when it came to trying marine delicacies. At one of his official banquets, he served sea urchins as an opening dish, making it clear that despite his sober demeanor, he recognized the importance of impressing the foreign court. If you've already found it strange to serve flamingo tongue or sea urchins, just imagine when meat from animals from distant regions arrived on Roman tables. Let's discover one of the most exotic meats brought from the African provinces. African antelope. African antelopes were hunted in the provinces of North Africa and transported live to Rome to ensure the highest quality meat. This, of course, cost a fortune, which made the dish as rare as it was coveted. Thus, serving antelope at a banquet was a display of power over the distant lands of the empire. There are accounts that Elagabalus organized an entire festival dedicated to African delights, where antelope was the main attraction. Served with sauces based on sweet wine and herbs, every piece of tender meat reflected the young and exuberant power of the emperor, who took pride in breaking protocols to surprise his guests. On the other hand, Lucullus, already accustomed to seeking the best from every corner of the empire, used to prepare antelope meat on large outdoor grills, enriched with spices brought by merchants from the east. The aroma was so striking that, according to witnesses, it could be sensed from hundreds of meters away before arriving at the feast location. Did you already know about this tradition of bringing meat from such distant lands? Write in the comments if you would try such an exotic dish. And since we're talking about meats from afar, the next banquet will surprise you even more. Preparing. Whole camels was something that went beyond the ordinary. Want to know how this delicacy made its way to the Roman table? Camel meat. Uncommon in routine banquets, camel meat was considered an exotic gift, often sent by governors from provinces in the Middle East who wished to please the emperor. Nero, in particular, loved receiving these treats as a way to reinforce his reputation as a unique and extravagant host. However, preparing camel was a culinary challenge. Apicius recorded in his recipe compendium the need for long hours of cooking with wine and spices, as the meat tended to be tougher. He introduced the use of black pepper and honey, creating a sweet and sour flavor that won over many palates. At the Roman court, Tiberius, more restrained, never truly enjoyed camel meat, but allowed it to be served at diplomatic events to demonstrate the influence that Rome wielded in such distant regions. Each banquet featuring camel meat reinforced the idea that the entire world was within the grasp of the empire's capital. Moving from exotic meats to the colorful realm of fruits, let's discover how Roman gardens were a spectacular display of their owners' wealth, and of course, these fresh products also played a crucial role at grand feasts. Exclusive fruits and vegetables. In Lucullus's time, having a private orchard full of fruits such as figs, pomegranates and grapes was a synonym for power and abundance. He would stroll with his guests among the trees before the banquet, showcasing that he could offer delights cultivated just steps away from his luxurious villa. Artichokes and asparagus were also featured on the elite's plates. It was not uncommon for slaves to make long journeys to fetch specific products out of season. All of this was to please the most discerning palates and to demonstrate Rome's ability to bend nature to its will. Elagabalus, always in search of spectacles, even used flower petals in his salads, coloring the table in an unusual way. He enjoyed playing with colors and textures, preparing eccentric mixtures that combined dried fruits, crunchy leaves, and sauces sweetened with honey. To many, his creations were edible works of art. Can you imagine having a garden like that? Enjoy and share this video with someone who loves discovering historical curiosities. Fruits and vegetables bring color to the table, but no Roman banquet would be complete without a truly show-stopping centerpiece. It's time to discover the symbolic power of the famous roasted wild boar. Roasted wild boar. Wild boar was one of the most prestigious meats at Roman banquets. The animal, often hunted in nearby forests, symbolized bravery and strength. Apicius had the idea of stuffing the boar with dried fruits and nuts, creating a unique harmony between the intense flavor of the meat and the sweetness of the stuffing. The feasts where Lucullus decided to serve roasted wild boar became legendary. He would hire musicians and dancers to entertain the guests while the animal was slowly prepared. A curious tradition was to place an apple in the boar's mouth, marking the dish's completion and creating an impressive visual effect when it arrived at the table. Emperors like Nero also adopted this custom, as they understood the symbolic power of the wild boar. After all, it was a way to show that they controlled nature, Tiberius, at the height of his reign, did not usually overdo it, but acknowledged that a well-prepared wild boar ensured praise at the court. So far, we have seen dishes that required great effort and resources to reach the table. However, there was one practice that divided opinions even among the Romans themselves: serving the meat of animals that lost their lives in gladiatorial games. Curious? Meat from animals killed in gladiator games, lions, tigers, and leopards used in Roman arenas, when not killed in combat, were often slaughtered afterward to provide meat for banquets. For some, this represented Rome's victory over wild beasts, symbolizing the empire's total dominion over nature. Elagabalus, in his desire to shock and enchant, even served such meats at private dinners, claiming it was a unique experience. However, many senators considered this practice an affront to decency and a disrespect to the gods, especially when it involved animals considered sacred in other cultures. Apicius and Lucullus, though curious, preferred to avoid this type of dish at their official receptions, fearing it might tarnish their reputation. They believed that gastronomy was an art, not an act of violence. Yet, in some lesser-known records, there are mentions of chefs attempting to mask the strong flavor of these meats with spicy sauces and full-bodied wines. Do you think this practice was acceptable for its time or completely shocking? Comment below with your opinion. From the mysteries of the arenas, we return to the luxury of the palaces. Now, let's explore the vast world of fish and seafood, which also captured the heart and wallet of the Roman elite. Luxury fish and seafood. Both Lucullus and Nero were passionate about the rarest fish. Garum, the fermented fish sauce, was practically an obsession in high Roman cuisine. The more expensive and well-fermented it was, the greater the host's prestige. Apicius, famous for his inventions, maintained specialized tanks for breeding moray eels and lampreys, intended exclusively for banquets attended by important figures. He even developed methods to control the water temperature, ensuring the fish survived longer. Elagabalus, always willing to go the extra mile, organized parties where tables were decorated with fresh oysters, brought from different regions of the Mediterranean. To entertain the guests, each serving was accompanied by brief musical performances, turning the simple act of tasting seafood into a theatrical show. Of course, we cannot forget the accompaniments. And when it comes to breads and cheeses, the Romans' creativity was as vast as their wheat stocks. Let's discover how these simple items became a luxury in the hands of the elite. Fine breads and cheeses. White bread, made from pure wheat flour, was an almost exclusive luxury for the nobility. While the poorer masses consumed rustic barley or dark flour breads, the elite delighted in soft, well-risen loaves. Lucullus would even order slaves to sift the flour several times to guarantee the perfect texture. Cheeses made from goat and sheep milk were also highly prized, often aged in clay containers to develop intense flavors. At important events, these cheeses were served on small silver plates and accompanied by olive oil sauces and herbs. Tiberius, in particular, liked to showcase them to his foreign guests, proving that Roman gastronomy went far beyond the main courses. Apicius wrote about ways to integrate bread and cheese into refined appetizers. He prepared garlic and olive oil seasoned toasts, finished with shavings of melted cheese. This type of simple yet sophisticated dish became a memorable experience for anyone seated at the table. If you're enjoying learning all these details, leave your like and share your opinion. Which of these accompaniments could not be missing from your dream banquet? And finally, let's talk about the highlight of Roman evenings: drinks. After all, no banquet would be complete without refined wines and unusual mixtures that surprised the senses. Wine and rare drinks. Falernian wine was considered the noblest of all, costing a small fortune. It was produced in specific regions, and the best barrels were highly coveted by the wealthiest families. Nero loved to display his appreciation for these rare vintages, offering Falernian to his closest guests to demonstrate generosity and power. Apicius also documented the use of mulsum, a mixture of wine with honey, served as a sort of welcome drink at elegant events. He believed that the sweetness of honey prepared the palate for the subsequent dishes, making the gastronomic experience even more remarkable. Elagabalus, always seeking a theatrical touch, introduced perfumed waters with rose petals and citrus flowers so that guests could cleanse their hands and palates between courses. This ritual, in a way, reflected the entire eccentricity of his reign, transforming even hygiene into a spectacle. And thus we come to the end of this journey through the flavors and excesses of ancient Rome. Between feasting on flamingo tongues, savoring African antelopes and washing hands in rosewater, wealthy Romans elevated the art of dining to a level of ostentation and power that still impresses us today. The names of Apicius, Lucullus, Tiberius, Nero, and Elagabalus have been forever etched in history, not only for their political or military feats, but for their ability to transform dining into an incomparable symbol of status. These sumptuous events reflected the absolute power exerted by the Roman elite, who controlled entire provinces, exploited exotic resources, and defied nature itself to prove their supremacy. By learning these details, we realize that while most people subsisted on simple breads and diluted wine, the privileged minority created a gastronomic spectacle that exalted the greatness of the empire. And you? Which of these delicacies intrigued you the most? If you enjoyed this dive into the past, subscribe to the channel now, leave your like, and share this video with your history-loving friends. Thank you for accompanying us this far, and we'll see you in the next video about ancient Rome and all its fascinating secrets.